I've said this a million times on a bunch of different platforms, but like when I first started, I had next to no experience in television. Like I was 23 years old. I never used a prompter. I'd never worked in a studio. So they put me with you in Stanford, and you literally held me by the hand and took me through stuff. So you and I, experienced everything together. And it's not like
Did.
we were like hanging out in bars every single night or something like that, whatever, with
Well, I
all the
mean, we
guys,
had
but
those
like
nights. We
we
did
had plenty
have
of those
those
nights.
nights.
What was the one in Indianapolis where you and Lita sung Prince? The
I
Wild
thought, you know
Beaver
what's so
Saloon.
funny? That for some reason, when I'm like scrolling through my phone, if I'm like trying to, it's like someone's birthday or something, I'm like, I need to find
Right.
a picture with this person. I come across those videos all the time, and I get that like that cringy feeling of like, what the were we thinking? Trying to go up and sing "Let's Go Crazy" to a bunch of 19, 20-year-olds that had not a clue. Well, I guess it would have been 21. We're not in Canada anymore. We were all boozing.
Yeah.
But yeah, nobody knew the song. Nobody liked it, but we stuck to our guns. We really tried to see it through to the end. It's
I
terrible.
respected it because Prince had just passed. So you and
Yeah.
Lita were like, we absolutely have to pay homage to him. And you did. And that place, I think it
Oh,
was,
we did.
I believe it was called the Wild Beaver Saloon. Like the
Maybe.
sign outside was hilarious. And I'm just standing there taking pictures and photos for you. And I was like, this is not going well, but it's hilarious.
It was not going. It was not our best showing, but we really we saw the performance through to maybe not the end, but at least 3/4 of the way through.
Yeah.
But yeah, we definitely had those times. You and I really did, like, we started really close together, maybe within a couple weeks of each other, maybe
I
even
think.
days. I don't know what it was. It was very close though. But it is really funny to look back on like sort of like those reflective moments of, yeah, I had more television experience at that time. So I was able to guide you through the studio stuff and reading off of a teleprompter and, even being down at NXT together when we could, kind of let loose and do our own thing and find out who we were in the scheme of WWE, what we sounded like, all that stuff. But on the other side, when I started doing commentary, I mean, damn, you really like took me by the strong arm and like you did your best to help me in a situation where I was like, somebody help me. But you were great. I mean, you would always like text me during the shows, you would give me updates on things. And you didn't have to do that. You certainly did not have to do that. So, I mean, I always really, really appreciated you
Thank you.
trying to send me a lifeline.
It's scary because like wrestling commentary is unlike anything else. And it's why, I've, since leaving WWE, I am committed to working in the sports world and in the entertainment world at large. So when I'm having these conversations with a variety of networks, it's been like, oh, what can you do? I'm like, I can do anything. And it's
Mhm.
not ego saying that. That's just confidence because of what WWE and professional wrestling asks you to do in a broadcast. I always refer to it as like a boulder rolling downhill, is that you're constantly trying to get out of the way of the boulder. It's like Indiana
Yeah.
Jones.
Yeah.
And if you don't hit something at the appropriate time, the moment is gone. It is live narration and voice acting. It is unlike anything else. And then
Mhm.
for us, for a lot of different things, to be intentionally late to something, even though we already know about it. Like there's so many little facets to it that are really terrifying when you're in the moment and you just want to hit it right. And then I mentioned voice acting. So much of it is just freaking acting where it's like,
Yeah.
the guy's going to get hit with a steel chair, but you've got to be, oh my God, he got hit with a steel chair, So it's really scary. So I understand the feeling and I hate to see anybody else in that situation and being like, what do I do? And it's like, all right, let's help him
I'm
out.
waving my arms. Help me. Come pick me up. No, but I mean, it really is such an interesting world. And I mean, I feel like you could dissect doing commentary for wrestling. I mean, I feel like I could for forever. It's when I still think about it. I've not done it in so long. And when I watch shows, I still think about it. And it's not even something that like, I was not necessarily as passionate about it, but I always want to be good at the things that I do. So I'm always like, wait, I'm still trying to figure it out.
You
Not
were
that I,
committed to it, even though it was like clearly not necessarily something that you were like trained to do or even like really
yeah.
terribly interested in doing. To be frank, I think there was room for you to grow there and actually become somebody really, really good on
I think so
color
too.
commentary. And I think about what Beth Phoenix was able to accomplish on NXT, and just because that setting
Yeah,
allowed her the time to grow and develop, what Beth
absolutely.
Phoenix became as a commentator, I absolutely was like, yeah, Renee Paquette absolutely could have done the same thing.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of setting sometimes. And there were a lot of instances where you and I would see it and it's like, that might not be the right platform or something. And they just need a little bit more
Sure.
time to cook
Yeah.
or something like that, so to speak. So that's just wrestling. That happens all the time.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And yeah, it's funny. I mean, it's such like, let's talk about like some of your stuff through WWE. I mean, we talked about us starting at the same time, and you got to go on, you've called Raw, you've called SmackDown, you've called pay-per-views, you've called WrestleManias, you've done all these things, but you did have some different ups and downs while in WWE. What was that like, going through some of those moments of doing shows, coming off of shows, moving on to other things that can be a bit of a mind I would say.
There were definitely frustrations, but there were so many high points when those opportunities would come up. Like I'd been put on SmackDown in 2014. I think I'm the youngest lead play-by-play announcer in the history of SmackDown. I didn't know what I was doing. No idea. Like that run of whatever briefly, however it was on SmackDown with like Cole and JBL. I hear that stuff every once in a while. I was like, that was terrible. I needed to come off that show. So in the moment, you're a kid, and I was naive, and I was like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm a little frustrated by this. But in retrospect, all the changes that occurred, I understood why they happened. And then for things to pop up, last minute, being the play-by-play guy for SmackDown for WrestleMania 33 in Orlando, I was like, I think like 2-3 weeks before the show, Cole told me, he's like, you're calling WrestleMania. And I was like, oh, really? All right, cool, man. Looking forward to it. So it's like, just don't mess up. So I think it's so normal. Again, it's just the world of professional wrestling. And I even experienced it last night at Hard to Kill, is that rarely are there moments where you feel 100% prepared.
Mhm.
And that's the beauty of it. You just get thrown in the deep end and you got to see if you swim.
How do you prepare? Because I would always see you putting your notes together. You've got your iPad. You are a very organized person. You are like very type
Super
A.
OCD.
Oh my
Super
God.
OCD.
What goes into your prep?
It was very different, obviously, with WWE, just because you have so many live traffic elements that you have to deal with as a play-by-play announcer, and that I took a lot of pride in making sure I'm like, I've got the ads right, I've got the B-roll, set, I've watched all the packages, I know all my lead-ins, all that stuff. I just wanted all the traffic, as we refer to it, to be really clean, and I prided myself on that. And then secondary after that was making sure, okay, I get my partners involved, Graves and Byron, there for a while. And then kind of third was calling the match, because you almost have to treat that as like a reflex. So once, like, over years of working on it, that became a reflex. I found I was taking less and less notes about the match itself, like maybe one or two little things here and there. And you just memorize certain things in terms of how many times a guy's been champion or where he did it, et cetera.
Mhm.
Impact was very different because obviously I've not been calling it for years. So I had been watching it for a number of years. I watched a fair amount of the TNA days, and then when it transitioned into TNA Impact, and now just Impact Wrestling. So I've been a big fan of Impact stuff for a while. So it's just a matter of kind of hitting the refresh button, so to speak,
Mhm.
and then just doing a lot of notes. Like, this was the most notes I've done for a show in a long time.
And it's funny. Like, I feel like, yeah, you put together all these notes, but how often do you actually reference them during a show?
Pretty often.
Oh, you do. Good
Yeah,
for
pretty
you.
often. Yeah, like last night I had a lot of things that I wanted to say. Like the women getting to bookend the show is really cool, and then starting with the first women's Ultimate X match. The thing that, and I've spoken to Beth about this a lot of times, is that the purpose of these firsts is that they become commonplace,
Yeah.
and that we don't have first time evers anymore for anything, in that it is equality and it is opportunity. And that's been very important. And it's just a matter of making sure that is the message. So there are a handful of things that I really wanted to get across. And then also just blurring those lines a little bit of, like, guys like, Jonah and Macklin, and even Madman Fulton, who I got to call on the countdown to Hard to Kill. It was like, okay, I've known these guys for a handful of years. So it's like, okay, how can I kind of massage this a little bit and talk about some things? W. Morrissey's path. We all
By the
saw
way,
the
how
rise and
shredded
fall.
was he for that? Good
It's really,
God.
yeah, it's really intimidating. He's very huge and he's in great shape, and he seems to be doing well, which is awesome.